What does the moon going into Taurus mean? What's it mean?
The moon's all about our emotions, and Taurus is about our our finances, our resources, what we love. So probably a good time to be talking money bits and feeling through the feeling through it.
Awesome.
Because as the moon goes into Taurus, it the big thing is Uranus in Taurus, so which is again that stuff to do with money and big changes, which we have been experiencing this year.
Yeah, people could start getting a bit worried about their money in a minute, potentially.
Yeah.
And there's this. We were talking about it last night, but there's this interesting thing going on where collectible cards, like physical cards, have just skyrocketed in activity and interest, and people. I don't know if it was a set of cards or one card, but it was a very rare mint condition NBL collector card, and some company paid $700,000 for it. But what's happening is the money in the world and the people that control that money are realizing that it has to move and go somewhere different, because the system is crumbling and falling apart. And so it's looking for new places to go to where it can be safe. Traditionally, it would have been gold, but even the gold market, there's all sorts of things happening there with how secure or safe or real is it anyway. And then the physicality of trying to deal with a physical lump of gold becomes an issue, and it becomes expensive, like to store it. So the money's trying to find other ways. And these collector cards and anything that's rare, same with artwork, the money's finding its way there. And this also includes the big kind of thing that we've seen, which is Bitcoin. And the big event last week, the week before, was Elon Musk sort of showing everyone, all the companies, showing the way, leading the way, and moving $1.5 billion of Tesla's books from cash onto Bitcoin. And now we're seeing other companies follow. So this is the Uranus.
I found the quote this morning. Sorry.
Yeah, yep.
Putting your wealth into Bitcoin is the economic equivalent of telling the government to go fuck themselves.
Yeah. And that's the other aspect that people are working out, how they can. They're not happy with banks and the government and those structures, and for a long time there hasn't been a way to really voice a protest that effectively. You can't sort of take on the banks, but that's what people are discovering, is that there is a way to take on things like the banks just by not participating. So if you pull your money out of that system and put it somewhere else, it's a really powerful protest, which is what's starting to happen. And we saw that with what happened with GameStop stock, which was a successful protest against the money markets by regular people.
So just for anyone in the team listening to this, so just quickly with a couple of lines summarize the GameStop situation, just to put it into perspective for everyone, because it's a fucking awesome radical thing that happened and perfectly timed.
Yeah, and it's the sort of symbolism is really great, because GameStop that's the name of the company that of the stock of that company that was involved. And what effectively was happening was stopping the game. So for a long time, the people in charge of the money markets have been playing a game and rigging it, essentially just taking everybody's money and hoarding it themselves through how they operate the money markets. And basically a network through Reddit of traders got together and got organised and decided to buy a particular stock that they knew, they'd worked out that some hedge funds were selling that stock or shorting it, which is essentially the other side of a bet. And they were sort of rigging it and making, loads of money. And then the event of buying that stock en masse, and I don't know the number of people involved, but it would have been a lot, essentially made these hedge funds lose billions of dollars. And a result of that was that the exchanges that allow you to trade changed the rules because things weren't going in their favour, which just sort of showed up the corruption and the manipulation of the market, the money market, for everyone to see. So it was all sort of exposed and out in the open.
And also that the people can have the power just by sweeping the narrative and playing the same game.
So it's been a real significant event, and it's been the start of something. So what's happening now is the momentum is following through, and it's spreading. Like, people are seeing, it's been demonstrated that this is an effective way to change things, and to have a protest and to sort of get rid of, or start to get rid of, corruption in those areas. So it's a significant thing, and it's continuing and it's growing. And I suspect because the next sort of thing that was targeted, I suppose you'd say, is silver. So now there's a bit of what they call a short squeeze being operated in the silver market. But that's a whole different thing from GameStop stock. So silver, it's just, the scale of money is so much bigger, and the scale of manipulation and control and rigging is on a much bigger scale. So that's a much bigger thing to go after, and that will probably take a bit more time to have an effect. But the fact that that's occurring and it's being effective also kind of hints and leaves a bit of a trail that it's not just a network of traders involved. There's actually some very big money players involved. So it does look like what's going on behind the scenes, and there is this sort of money war going on behind the scenes where big, powerful players are trying to get control of the money market. But it does seem that some of the, I suppose you'd say, the good players are having effect. And if it continues and plays out, we probably will see the failing and the collapsing of the traditional money market, which is a huge thing. And that then means that hundreds of trillions of dollars have got to go from where they are to somewhere else.
Yes.
So there's big things happening.
And it's quite amazing because when the people work out how to rig the system in their favor, that's I'm sure an indication of the end of that failed enslaved system. Like when the people revolt against it and find a way to do it and actually outsmart the enslavers or those who are ripping off everyone, it's indicates the end of that system.
It's the classic when all the fish organise and become the bigger fish and eat the shark that's been eating them the whole time. Reorganise,
And we're seeing it happening. It's happening now.
It's amazing. It's amazing to watch that whole world being actually exposed from the inside out. I love that. It's just sort of that false grid that's existed within our financial institutions, always rigged against the people, always rigged to abuse the people and draw its success from the failings of the people, is starting to collapse. It's not in alignment with the new, well, at least it's going to collapse for those who are resident with the New Earth grid, with the 5D grid, with the version of the future that absolutely involves a huge shift in this financial enslavement that we've all been sort of born into for so long, so many generations now.
I think it could be interesting too, because I think some people won't want to shift. They'll want to stay in the 3D and they'll want the banks to look after their money, and they trust the banks, and that's, it works for them to be in that pyramid rather than being part of that mycelium network, because it takes a bit more responsibility for oneself to do that.
Absolutely. Mm.
And I think what's going to, I was listening to a discussion the other day, how these changes doesn't really mean that the banks are going to disappear or they're not going to be needed, that they'll still be there and they'll still be around, but they'll have to change what they do. And part of that will be looking after people's money as they do.
Mm.
And that's right. Some people want that and they like that, but they won't be looking after their cash. They'll be looking after their Bitcoin, and they'll be managing Bitcoin accounts and other cryptocurrency accounts. And this is already in play. Like there's more than, I don't know where we're at, but it's over $50 billion now has already moved from cash into Bitcoin in terms of public companies. And publicly listed companies have shareholders, and they have an obligation to look after their shareholders, and they're feeling the pressure from these different directions that they need to, even if they don't understand cryptocurrency or Bitcoin, there's all this pressure now for them to try and catch up if they haven't caught up, and to move across into Bitcoin. So this is showing us this is just the beginning. So now that we have Tesla and Michael Saylor from MicroStrategy, they've kind of led the way. There's rumors that Twitter and Google and Apple, and they may have already started doing it, shifting some of their company's money across to Bitcoin. And then once those big companies demonstrate, it just follows on and it goes down, and then you get the middle, medium-sized and small-sized companies, and eventually everyone moves across because they have to then at that point. If they don't go with the change, they will be left. It'll be like Blockbuster Video going out of business because they didn't digitize their business, essentially. They were offered, Blockbuster was had an opportunity to buy Netflix years, I don't know when this was, but it was for a ridiculous amount of money. It was like nothing. It was so cheap, and they didn't see what was happening, and they declined to do that. And then obviously Netflix has become this massive company, and Blockbusters, I don't know where they are. They've kind of disappeared. But so if they don't come on board, companies will just get left behind.
And it's like, it's really interesting, this whole like beginning all these discussions, because like with the blockchain technology, from what I'm understanding, it's like, it's so transparent and so accountable that all these dodgy dealings and weaving and this dark black market and all this stuff, all the laundering, all the stuff that has gone on underpinning our financial enslaved system, like will cease to exist. Is that accurate?
Exactly. The blockchain it's essentially software or coding, which is essentially mathematics. And I like this sort of example, that if you take 1 + 1 = 2, how do you corrupt that? Like, how can a third party get involved in that and corrupt it or change it? It just, it's not possible. So the blockchain technology, and Bitcoin is built on blockchain technology, has the same properties. It's mathematics, and mathematics doesn't need a caretaker. It doesn't need a third party manager or CEO or company or headquarters or bureaucracy to keep it working and keep it in existence. It does all that on its own. So apart from being incredibly secure, and it's because it's using encryption, there's been 11 years of open doors for every hacker in the world to get in there and try and hack Bitcoin. And although there were some small things early on in its Bitcoin days, that hasn't occurred, and it's essentially not possible. And the other major part of Bitcoin is, because you don't need a third party, you have a way that people can connect to each other and exchange in the form of money or value without the need of a third party or a bank or insurance or something that will facilitate, or permission, exactly. So, and because it's using internet technology, and that's not restricted to the internet, which is another sort of area, but it means that, for example, myself, I can do an exchange with someone anywhere in the world, whether they're in the next room or on the other side of the globe, for any amount of money, with really, really minimal cost and very, very efficient and very quick. So if you're talking about Bitcoin, because there are many other currencies or cryptocurrencies, but it can take anywhere from 5 minutes to, you know, maybe 15 minutes, at the most, maybe half an hour. And it's completely secure. So there's no, I don't have to worry about, if I'm using the traditional system, I've got to worry about conversion fees, people ripping me off with the conversion of money from one currency, say Australian dollar, to another currency. Then I've got to worry about the excessive bank fees and costs that they charge me to facilitate that movement of money, not to mention the time. I mean, if you're doing an international transfer, it can take months in some cases, and sometimes it just gets lost. And no one knows.
Even the fact that you're limited to how much money you can even take out of your bank account per day when it's your money. So, like, yeah, just opens up all the possibilities much wider.
I saw this morning, I get these alerts when large amounts of Bitcoin are moving around. And it's not uncommon to see these situations where hundreds of millions of dollars move from one Bitcoin wallet to another wallet. And what was I going to say? Yeah, it's definitely the case that there are very large amounts of money already that are moving through this system. So it's, I mean, I think some people may still doubt Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, like that, you know, for the last few years, that's been the thing where people have been questioning it and saying it's a scam, or saying it's a bubble, it's going to pop, you're going to lose everything if you put any money into it. But I think we're at the point now, and it's been 11 years since Bitcoin kind of started, that it's proven itself. And we've got all these examples and indications of exactly what Bitcoin is, and what function it has, and how we can use it in a positive way.
And 11's a good number. So, all right, well, before we actually formally, so this is meeting number 1 for the art department. We formally get into that conversation. Can I ask just a really basic question, which is, I'd really love to discuss, so we're all very clear on how Bitcoin is in the current state of working with community, how it represents the people in a whole other way than our traditional banking methods and money exchange has. Like, how does it actually work for the people?
I think one example of that's already happening is people that are termed the unbanked, because they don't have access to banking systems, or they don't have enough money to get involved in the banking system. So they can't have an account, they can't be paid money into an account. And that's a very large number of people on the earth that are in that kind of scenario. But what's happening now with this, with Bitcoin and this technology, is people can now engage in money exchange. And one of the sort of scenarios is, say, anywhere around the world where you're in an isolated place where there is no facilities, there may not even be electricity or limited electricity. But if someone has a device like a mobile phone, they can have a Bitcoin wallet on their phone, and they can send and receive, and essentially they can manage other people's money as well. So there might be a scenario in a small town where a person in that town all of a sudden can become something like a bank, and facilitate people exchanging money back and forth, trading, buying things, selling things. And that can all happen without what we traditionally know as the banking system. So that is revolutionizing how money works, and how the movement and the transaction of value works. So yeah, that's sort of one example. And there is so much going on now with ideas coming to form, and there's so many projects and different solutions being found using the technology that Bitcoin is built on. It's spreading through, you know, all aspects of society. So it's not just banking or money. It's things like insurance. It's things like record keeping. So that has implications for the health system, and it just goes on and on and on. So it's really, yeah, it's changing
Tell
the
us
world.
about the model that they've sort of started generating with the options with your super. I was really interested in that one.
Yeah, there is, and we're lucky here in Australia because we already have that facility, and I'll mention New Brighton Capital. They are a company that allow people to take charge of their super, and you can essentially create your own, what's a self-managed super fund, and it's now regulated and legal that you can do that in the cryptocurrency space. So you can take your super account out of the traditional banking system and you can invest it in cryptocurrencies, and you can do it all yourself, and it's now very straightforward and it's very simple to do that, and it's a very powerful thing to do. That was just making me think about Michael Saylor, who invested $1 billion of company money at the end of last year in Bitcoin at an average price when Bitcoin was about $12,000 US. And today, the Bitcoin price is around $48,000 US.
Mm-hmm.
So he's, in the space of a couple of months, he's made a 400% return on his company's money. And if he had have left it where it was in the traditional system, it's increasing, but he would have been losing anywhere between 10 to 20% of his company's money's value over a year.
Yeah.
Which is because of what's going on with printing money and that effect on inflation.
Yeah.
So how does crypto empower communities?
It puts the control, the power 100% into the hands of the people in the community. So it's not an institution or a third party dictating how individuals in a community can interact with something like money or what they can do with money. So you don't have the situation where if you need to use a bank account or an ATM card, you give the bank your money. So it's not your money anymore, it's their money. And they have control and the power. And they decide whether they will give your money, what was your money, back to you. And there's lots of scenarios where that happens, where you can't get your money. So that's the biggest thing, is it makes a situation where people are 100% in control of their own money and their own transactions. And that brings also the responsibility. So they are completely responsible for their own interaction or use of money.
Which is so in alignment with personal sovereignty. And personal sovereignty is so in alignment with the new earth, and so in alignment with us understanding and remembering that we are sovereign human beings, that is the original law, and that no one governs us, no one governs over us. So as these systems start to collapse, we as the individual are starting to rise in our awareness of our own personal sovereignty. That's what I love about the whole crypto market, is you're actually working with an energetic template that is putting your sovereignty ahead of everything else, which is God's law. Like, that is the law, the true original law that we need to be re-empowered in. And the more systems that come up in response to this, like enslaved matrix, it's going to just facilitate wonderful human conscious sovereignty. And that to me is so fucking powerful. And I love that about this movement into the whole blockchain technology.
I'm not sure if we've ever had this situation before in our history as human beings, because Bitcoin is, and some people will argue that it's not decentralized, but essentially it is decentralized, and there are other forms of cryptocurrencies that certainly are decentralized. But I don't think we've ever had a situation where our money system, and even any kind of system or form of doing things as within a society, it's always been centralized. Like and I don't know if there is an example of a time when there was decentralized things in place.
Well, I suppose it was probably always happening in the marketplace, but beyond the marketplace, it always goes back to the banks or the upper echelons of the triangle.
Yeah, and there was always something in control. So if you go back to the Middle Ages in Europe, it wasn't things were sort of decentralized. If you compared it to the empires that were there before, with the Roman Empire and the Greek Empire. So there was, things sort of dispersed and fell apart and became decentralized in that sense. But there was always a family.
Yeah,
there was always a system in place where the thing was centralized, and ultimately the control, everything went back to the top of the little pyramid, whether it was a family or a priest or whatever. Yeah. So what we're seeing now, this is why people get so excited about it. Because we are seeing this complete change and complete shift from this centralized thing that we know and understand to this new thing, which is decentralized, which we have no idea what that actually means and what that's going to bring to us. So we're entering this exciting time of discovery, a renaissance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's
for
huge.
humans,
The age of Aquarius.
The age of Aquarius.
Absolutely. So Joe, tell us, how does it relate to the age of Aquarius?
Well, Aquarius is it's all about the greater picture, the greater good, for humanity, and it's also the future. It relates to the future. It relates to tech. It relates to inventions. It's fast moving. It's air. It's boo, boo, boo. I mean, which describes the crypto interactions really well. It's like it takes a split second rather than all this drudgery of earth energy, paperwork, bureaucracy. So the crypto thing fits in so well in the fact that it's it's that decentralized thing for the people. There's no big guy at the top telling us how to work it and grabbing all the money. It's Aquarius, and because there's so much going on in Aquarius now, it's the timing is just incredible as far as how it's moving so quickly in all the areas. So
was it something like six planets in Aquarius, or
there's 5, I think, because the moon's just moved again. But big changes afoot. So happening in the financial system, it's happening across the world, as we know, with this stupid life lockdown business and whatever. But it's just exciting times, and I feel like you can't fight it. It's so the sooner you can jump on board, then it's a fast moving thing, and it's exciting. The age of Aquarius, it's back to it's all about humanity and for power to the people, not
and it's like pure potential. That's how I feel about it. It's like when we get to a decentralized system, there's a true pure potential for humanity to create and imagine and to innovate, and there's no block there, there's no cap there. I mean, that pyramid structure, essentially, if I take it down to its bare end result, it's the oppression and suppression of human innovation, of human potential, of human imagining. So to me, this blockchain technology is like an inverted pyramid, where it's just like an explosion, like a volcano out of the top, where we've just got like mass amounts of human potential flooding into the world, which is so in alignment with the age of Aquarius and so in alignment with the 5D New Earth, imagining. So for that reason, I mean, I know, so we have another charity called Carbonate, and it's because it's the fundraising charity, like we get money coming in from donors, and then that money has to be auspiced to another body of people who have got the right government certification process, which is a DGR status, which is really fucking hard to get. And it takes like 2 years of paperwork, and it's really specific. You can't just say, you know, we're here to serve regeneration of the planet. It's got to be like, we're specifically working with bushfires. And if you go outside of that parameter, you can't get your DGR, which means you can't auspice your own money. And then you have to engage another organization to auspice. And then they have to go through it. And then that gets back to us. And the time delays are like 2 months. And it's really arduous in dealing with all these boards of usually stuffy old white men. And it sucks.
It's bullshit bureaucracy. And hopefully we can see the end to all that, you know, like all the jobs that go with it, all the stamping and filing and memoing.
Yeah.
Like no one's going to have a job in that anymore. So we're all going to have to get more creative.
Oh, the end to paperwork, the end to sort of board meetings, boring meetings, paperwork, fucking staples and all that shit. That is just like, you know, everyone hates.
Parameters, guidelines, you know, all that stuff. It's like we're everything's just about to blow right open as far as how we even think, I believe. You know, like it's all just going to move so quickly to, you know, we've been so constrained for so long in so many different ways that, yeah, it's a perfect opportunity just to step outside of every single box that has ever been created for us as we sit in these little boxes, which is quite funny.
These little boxes are called Zoom, which is like very indicative of future tech, I guess.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know if it was you guys I had this discussion with, but I heard recently that, you know, currency usually only has an 80-year lifespan. And historically, at the 80-year mark, the currency will collapse and a new one will replace it. And our currency got propped up, you know, like in the fall, what was that, in like 2008 or something, and like has had this like false, like extended life. But historically, at the 80-year mark, our currency collapses and is replaced with a new system. And we are definitely watching that play out now in such a phenomenal new way that it's so in alignment with the freedom of humanity. And I absolutely, it makes absolute sense to myself and anyone who's following this quantum financial reset, disclosure, the truth movement, everything about Nasara and Jasara, all of those topics would align behind the blockchain technology being that system. Like, it's so obvious now. We've got the traditional like money world, the old world, and everything that means. And then we've got this brand new opposing, like, beautiful force that's coming up. So indicative of the war between the dark and the light, the old earth and the new earth, enslavement and sovereignty, you know, bullshit.
That's really interesting too, because astrologically we've got these lots of squares going on with Jupiter and Saturn at the moment, and that's exactly the energy. It's like expand, contract. Jupiter's expand, Saturn's contract. It's, you know, like Jupiter's the great benefic, Saturn's the great malefic. You know, there's this battle of good and evil going on. Well, not good and evil, but the battle of polarities, really.
Yeah.
You know? So we just got to find the middle ground and move forward all together with it.
And it's not long now. The US dollar currency it's on its last legs, and it has been going for that 70, 80 year cycle. You know,
wasn't there an attempt or talk of the them bringing in the crypto thing back, and then 9/11 happened, which was a major, you know.
That was pre Bitcoin, but there was, I mean, there's been that discussion that they were going to introduce Nasara Gasara, and then 9/11 happened. I do know that on that day, there was an incredible amount of computer activity, essentially computer bots moving money back and forth, like lots of money, lots of accounts, lots of activity. Because some of those businesses in that building, you know, were financial businesses. So there was a lot of that's going on. But the people in those businesses didn't really know what was going on. They were like, where's all this money going? Like, what's happening? And you had all sorts of things going on. You know, someone took out a big investment as a short on an airline company before it happened and made a lot of money. The owner of the buildings made a lot of money from his insurance. So there's certainly, we don't get to sort of know what was going on behind the scenes, but there was a hell of a lot going on for that event to occur. And we're in a situation now where, again, there's all this stuff going on in the background behind the scenes that we don't really know about or get to see. And in the last 12 months, more than 40% of all the US dollars that have ever been made, and that's the whole globe, more than 40% of them were made in the last 12 months.
Yeah,
so
right.
The scale of printing of money is just, it's just got to the point where it is ridiculous. So you're right in saying that currency and that market has been propped up since 2008, and the people in charge, they're doing different things to prop it up and keep it going, and they're trying to keep it going. I suspect what's happening now with all this printing of money is that they're doing that so that they can move more money across to cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin, because that's the people that are doing that now will be the people that will have more control in the future, because they will have more of, because there's only a limited amount of Bitcoin. You can't print Bitcoin. There's only ever going to be technically 21 million Bitcoins, although something like 5 million of them are already lost forever, so they'll never come back. But a government or a regime.
Wait, what do you mean
can't
lost forever? What's lost forever? Explain that.
There's an individual I've heard about, and it's a common kind of story in the UK, I think, somewhere in Britain, who has offered to pay the local council £93 million to help him find his computer that's in the tip. And he wants to find it because 10 years ago or 9 years ago, when Bitcoin was it was an idea, essentially. It wasn't worth anything. It wasn't traded, and it didn't have any value in that sense. But he had about 10,000 of them or something stored on his computer's hard drive. And he upgraded it, and he just threw this. He didn't think anything of the Bitcoin at that time, and he just threw it away. But now that's worth billions of dollars. And there's lots of scenarios of people doing that. Like I heard just recently, a friend was saying how they knew someone who had 2 Bitcoin, and they had it stored as a paper wallet, which has the code on it. But they've lost it. They don't know where this piece of paper is. And if they can't find that piece of paper, they'll never be able to access that Bitcoin. So in those situations, the Bitcoin just becomes lost, and no one can retrieve it, because if you don't have that particular code, you can't get it. You can't get access to it. So now people are a lot more wary and careful of how they store their passwords and codes.
Yeah, because there's no middleman. There's no one. There's no helpline.
Exactly.
There's no middle management. This is sovereignty. What you do with the cryptocurrency is your law and your sovereignty. And if you fuck it up and lose your password, there's no one to call about that topic. There's no easy reset on the, iTunes. It's literally like you have to take personal account. And I think that's another awesome thing, because I know for myself personally, I have unfortunately, I have rejected the current financial marketplace. I always have known it's been the root intention of our enslavement. I know all the teachings about energy and resonance and how you can just move your energy around, but my whole starseed disclosure, truth-seeking DNA tells me money's original intention in our 3D world right now was to enslave the human race, and it has done the most amazing job at that. So I've never wanted to really interact with it or relate. And I think a lot of the community groups, a lot of artists, a lot of activists, anyone who's sort of seeing the whole enslavement version of money has basically stayed pretty out of the system, which means generally we're not in our financial abundance, we're not in our financial sovereignty on that level. And so this whole system where we decide to reset the whole thing, that it's no longer carries that intention of enslavement. In fact, it's the exact opposite. It's the intention of freedom, and sovereignty means that we have to be, for the first time ever, deeply accountable and transparent with our own wealth and abundance. And, you know, normally I just like roll my eyes, you know, from the old system, but now I'm just like, fuck yeah, let's go with this. Like, I am ready to stand as a wealthy, abundant new leader in the new earth. And that means I have to make sure I know where my password is.
Yeah, that's right. The Bitcoin Ben has this quote that currency is something like currency is the collective illusion of value. So money it's communication. It's a way we communicate value and different things, ideas, concepts between ourselves and other people. And that has been, because it's been centralized, it has been controlled, and that part of human nature that is not very nice has been in control, and it has made money this horrible, enslaving power. But money itself isn't an enslaving power. It is communication. So if it's used by the other part of human nature, which is for good things, it becomes incredibly powerful. And because Bitcoin is decentralized, it's removing, like we've been discussing, that centralized structure and that power, and it's putting the power back and the responsibility into the hands of individuals who can then choose what part of human nature they're going to engage with money and do something with money or Bitcoin.
Well, I think generally people want to do the right thing. They want to share. They want to, you know, be generous. They want to, you know, that's probably why we're all, you know, we've been kept down here.
It's only
the greedy ones that want to suck it up. So it would become just an incredible share economy if the wealth is redistributed amongst, you know, the average human all over the planet. You know, like there'd be plenty for everybody to share and.
And Bitcoin enables that to happen, because it's only like, you know, 1% of the human population that are real assholes, like psychopaths. And Bitcoin, that technology, the blockchain technology, is something that can make that happen, where that 1% that had the power and the control through a centralized system, that's going to be taken away. And
hopefully they're all arrested soon, and then all the quadrillions that they've held on to also gets redistributed too and shared amongst everyone, you know, who's paid taxes for years or whatever, because hopefully they all go down and the money gets redistributed.
And this is what's happening. I was thinking, when we were talking about this, Jojo, the other day, that perhaps Nasara Gasara is happening in the form of the money, the trillions, the quadrillions of dollars of value, which is moving from the traditional system into the new blockchain cryptocurrency Bitcoin system. As that's occurring, there's thousands of people all over the globe that are into cryptocurrency. There's like kids, there's teenagers living in their parents' basement, so to speak, who are accessing cryptocurrency, because anyone can do it. You just need a mobile phone. And they've got Bitcoin, or they've got other cryptocurrencies in their digital wallets. And so as this movement of money and wealth is moving from this old system, from these controllers, it's moving into the hands of anyone who wants to be involved. So you don't have to be wealthy or an elite or a banker or someone who knows about money and investing and financial things. You don't have to know anything. You just have to participate and be involved. And that distribution of wealth flows in that direction. So in that sense, this is one way or a form that the Nasara Gasara kind of idea could become real, become.
Oh, it feels like this is definitely how it's becoming real. Like, it definitely is in so many ways in perfect alignment with what Nasara actually stands for. And it's pretty freaky for the average person who's got like a successful business. They've worked really hard. They've sort of mastered the system enough to have a comfortable life and generate a profit. And suddenly this whole financial shift is about to take place. And you know, it's sort of like, if you don't get your head around it now, you're going to be sort of like behind the 8 ball on like how it's going to lead the future of finances. So would you say it's a fair assessment that if you do have a successful business and you've learned to basically master our current money system, if you don't make a shift financially towards the crypto world, will you be basically disadvantaged in any way?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think about VHS and video players, and I still have a video player, and we have VHS cassettes. But most people don't. Like most people, for most people, the reality is that that technology doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
And if you didn't make that move from VHS, from videos to DVDs, and then to digital streaming video technology, you were left behind. And the same thing is occurring. So it's not financial advice in any way, but I feel that that's the best thing to do. And if I had a business, any kind of business activity, I would be shifting it onto the blockchain and using Bitcoin or other.
Well, I think quite soon are those businesses who are making money. I mean, they're all challenged at the moment as well anyway, but if they are making the money, then they'll realise pretty quickly with inflation that they're going to have to move over.
And that's what's
inflation
occurring.
is just going to be ridiculous. It's already happening. We can see it in the supermarkets now.
Yeah.
Of the price of things going through the roof because money is worth less and less because they've printed it just willy-nilly.
And that's going to keep occurring. And this is why those smart CEOs of companies have realised that the best place to put their company's funds is into the blockchain, and that's what they're doing. And Bitcoin currency is engineered and it's created in a way to be deflationary. Every 4 years, the amount of Bitcoin that's created is cut in half. And there's other mechanisms built into it that create a currency that doesn't have inflation. So when you look at Bitcoin in comparison to fiat currency, so if you take Bitcoin and compare it to the US dollar, the US dollar is over time going down in value. So $1 today buys you a whole lot less than $1 did 50 years ago. And you've probably seen like the pictures that show you what $30 worth of shopping would give you every decade as we go through time. So while the US dollar is doing that in value, over time Bitcoin's going in the other direction. So companies and individuals are realizing that if you take your US dollar or Australian dollar or cash and move it into Bitcoin, you're not just stopping the loss of the value of your cash, you're doubling up in some kind of way in terms of over time the value of Bitcoin is, and as it's doing that just by its own metrics, its own what it is, but it's also going up in value as more and more people find out about this and get involved and get curious and want to be a part of it, because the actual value of a Bitcoin is not discovered yet. We're still finding out what one Bitcoin is worth. So, less than 2 years ago, it was worth $3,000 US. Today, it's worth nearly $50,000 US. And it's nowhere near the end of that process of finding what its value is. And so we're heading up to 100,000. And then obviously the next kind of mark is 1 million. And then we'll see what happens. But it's still really, really early days in terms of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency technology.
Well, that was okay, guys. So that was a great opening conversation, just sort of getting our heads around, what is the Bitcoin and what is this cryptocurrency and how it impacts it. Like, I think everyone who's listening to this is sort of in that stage where they're just having the fog shifted from their eyes, and it's like a really exciting time to sort of like deep dive into these topics and understand. But for me, it's a really exciting time to actually work with you both in formulating an idea to do with art and sacred regeneration and the crypto market, and this like weaving together many, many strands and many, many minds under that sort of department. So just to recap where we're at with the art department, is we've come up with the concept that we're going to launch this idea into the crypto space. So we're going to chew on what that actually means. When I say crypto space and launching an idea, what actually does that mean? And then from there, we're going to set up a digital gallery. We're going to invite artists to join the art department. We're going to set up our own token. So we've got an interactive exchange there, so we can buy and sell using the token. We're going to watch how we stimulate that token to grow in a bit of value. And then we're going to, basically launch the careers of many artists as we help them transition into the crypto world, making it very simple for them to get involved. And also launch all of our regenerative audiences who are not the artists, who just want to get involved and support this concept, launch them into the crypto world because they need to have a digital wallet to interact with us. And then we're going to expand it to a broader version of engaging how we develop our own coin and currency. And the token's going to start as the platypus token, and it's going to lead our artists through a process of producing work that's geared towards sacred regeneration and geared towards providing visions for the new future, for the new earth. So my whole methodology here is that we can't move into the new earth, ascended, awakened paradigm until we have visual aids, so we can bring people's focus onto something and their consciousness can start to integrate those images and then project it forward into reality, which is how reality works, because this whole space is essentially holographic. So that's sort of like the summary of where we're taking this idea. And like my main push is to bring forward a call for artists to bring forward visions of the new earth. And I'm terming that sacred regeneration. So from that very broad concept right now, I'm going to start with some really, we're going to go into the, first of all, what are your thoughts on that whole topic? And then I'm going to actually start to ask you the questions that as we work through the stages of how we're going to actualize this idea. So what are your thoughts on that concept?
I think it's really exciting, and I think it's what's happening and it's what's coming, and it's exciting to get involved with that in the art space, because it's going to happen in every space. Where not only are we, is the Earth and the solar system moving through a different part of the universe now, and we're entering this new space, but our reality is doing the same thing on Earth, and we're entering this new type of reality or existence that we don't know what it is, what it looks like, or what its
and therefore it does
are.
make it very difficult to visualize where we're all heading, to come up with more of a collective vision about what it actually looks like, so we can head there rather than just being pushed and pulled and cajoled by outside images or ideas, or to create our own reality moving forward.
And it's another example of the way artists lead the way and show everybody else and teach everybody else what the new is, as we're all moving into the new. And this is what happens through history. Every time this has happened through history, it's the artists that lead that process, really.
And the gardeners, don't forget the gardeners
Sorry.
as well. Feed us
And the
as
gardeners.
well.
the dreamers, the imaginationists.
The visionaries, yeah, absolutely.
The visionaries.
So maybe artists in the 5D world working with us should be called heartists. So the word,
oh yeah, that's a good word.
So art, of course, is in the word heart, and it's also in the word earth. So when we look at bringing forward sacred regeneration onto this plane, what I'm saying is that we're simply wanting to regenerate all the trauma that's happened across the board. Yeah, that's right. Our little heart symbol there. The heartist. So our heartist community is, they're very up to date with the understanding that our thoughts or our energy and consciousness create reality. So where our focus goes, reality flows. So when we say when your energy and consciousness equals reality, it means whatever we focus on literally matters. It literally becomes matter. So with that concept, and as the artist behind NRAD and Carbonate and everything we've been doing in this regenerative space, I'm very aware that there are no other artists working in this space. So it's very hard to find visual aids. So we've got plenty of solution makers and innovators and communities doing amazing things, but they're lacking the visual aids to communicate and give like a visual illustration of what it is that they're doing. And so people don't get to connect their focus and consciousness to the idea. It's just all words, right? So we're going to like basically bridge that. So when we're talking about developing the new matrix grid around the new earth and what it looks like, we need the visuals. Like that is the renaissance. It's like exactly what you're saying with the suburbs, like, or with any sort of place which has gone into sort of Dero disarray, unloved Dero community. And it's always because it then becomes really cheap. And then the students and the artists move in, and then they like paint it all up and open up all their cool little niche businesses and totally regenerate the space. And then it becomes the most sought after place to live and very expensive again. So it's like we've definitely got examples of how important artists and art are to regeneration, and how fundamental their energy is to bringing those new visions forward. So the art department's primary role is to bring the artist into a space where we are collectively, like your fungi example, Joe, that we're collectively wiring and firing with team projects to do with visual aids for sacred regeneration, which can then be utilized in the 3D world as a community resource. So anyone who's working in the space can access this work and use it in their education or their awareness campaigns or whatever they're up to. So I'm really excited to see how this is all going to play out. So my first question, which is, it's a little question, but you know, we're going to need to build obviously a website for the art department. And on that website, we're going to have a very simplified, to the best of our ability, a very advanced yet simplified process of registering as an artist or a heartist or a donor or a co-creator. We're going to rechange all these words and get your crypto wallet opened. But is there a contradiction using sort of the 3D platforms like Wix or WordPress when we're setting up a website to do with crypto blockchain technology? Do we need to look at websites that have already got that blockchain foundation in their foundations? Like, is there a contradiction using, can I use a Wix website to actually work with blockchain technology?
That's a really interesting question because there is blockchain websites starting to evolve, which are they're built and they are hosted not on an internet protocol, but they're hosted on the blockchain. So they're there forever in that sense, and they can't. This is important, I think, in the current times, because these sites can't be turned off and they can't be censored. We've got a big problem now with the centralization of the internet, that big tech companies have the power to turn off a president's Twitter account. You know, it's crazy, the amount of power they have. So there is, one of the areas is called unstoppable domains, and you can create a domain name or a website name using this new kind of blockchain protocol. And there's ways. It's only, you know, very recently been evolving, so it's a very new area. But I didn't think of it before, but I think that is something we definitely should be looking in that direction, because this is the, you know, the websites of the future starting to show us how they're going to be, and we're in this timing situation where we can get involved and be a part of that evolution and that development as well. And I think that also answers that dilemma or that question of, should we be using that system like the other platforms to build websites from the old system? I think we should be looking to the new ways, the new systems. So I'll find out more about this unstoppable domains and find out how we can do that.
So how do they differ? Like, say, the old system to a new system with the websites?
Because the big problem with the internet, like even when you go and do a Google search, it's completely controlled and filtered. So you only get to see a very, very small portion of what the internet is and what there and what's out there. And that's determined by the values and the politics of the controllers at Google. You know, they make the filter. So
Fact checkers.
Yeah.
Fact checkers.
Yeah, exactly. So these new types of domains or websites are existing because they're on the blockchain, which is a decentralized structure. They are decentralized websites. And so you remove, again, the same with Bitcoin, you're removing the third parties and the opening for manipulation, corruption, censorship, and all those things, which is the problems that we have increasingly with the system that we have with the internet being centralized. So there's startup companies and crypto or blockchain companies that have been developing a way to interact with a blockchain to have a website there and host a website. So essentially there are now platforms where you can create an address, a blockchain address, which is your website, and then interfaces so that you can design and build the graphics of how your website appears on screen, how people will interact with it. I've come across this one platform that does this, and it's been a little while since I've looked at it, so there's probably a whole lot of new things that now being developed, and there's probably a whole lot of more functionality. But once something is on the blockchain, so when Satoshi Nakamoto made Bitcoin blockchain public, he put an image of a newspaper article, which was something, the headline was something like, "The Reserve Bank is about to give the banks another bailout." And it was a statement. And he put this image into the first block. So now when people do a scan of the blockchain, they can go back to the first block and this image is in there. So it's like, and it makes me think of the Akashic record. So it's permanent. It can't be censored. You can't change it. You can't delete it. You can't say, "Oh, we don't want that there anymore, let's take it out." It's just not possible. And this is what will happen with websites once they're created and are situated virtually within the blockchain. So that's very exciting.
So
that's the direction we're going.
So if we were to then create a website using the blockchain tech, could we find it on Google?
I'm not actually sure. I don't know enough about this area at the moment.
That's cool.
To know those. I
Research
don't know.
that.
I'm not sure how. Yeah, I have to find out. But that's an important question because you need accessibility and discoverability.
Yeah, so if we need our audience to be able to find the website, almost 99.5% of them will be still using some form of search engine from the old internet. So we have to work out if the new blockchain website function is, you can search it on the old internet sites, search engines. And interesting, so I would, if I was an investor, I would be totally investing in these new companies that are building the software to host websites on the crypto blockchain. Oh my God, that industry is going to be friggin' huge.
You look at the last kind of industrial revolution that happened when email and the internet popped up, and if you look at if you had invested in some of those companies, and it's hard to work out which companies are going to be the Amazons or the Googles or the Facebooks in the beginning days, but that's certainly going on right now. There's all these companies that some of them are going to be incredibly important in the future. what we could do is like almost like a bridge website where the first part of the website is in the traditional structure and discoverable on Google. But a portion or a part of our website might be living on the blockchain so that we can have the best of both worlds.
I'm just making a note of that one. Yeah, I think best of both worlds right now. Amazing.
Yeah, and that would fit with, you know, that we're in this transition.
Yeah.
Which
yeah,
interesting. I was just thinking, it's also, you know, we're in this transition of going into the age of Aquarius. Like things don't stop and start. There's this period of flux. And that's what we're in with technology and things like blockchain as well.
I feel like as we develop this art department idea, we're going to bridge a lot of those transitional processes. So we probably will have our foot in both sides of the spectrum for, for a while, but at least having one whole half of us into the new earth quantum.
Well, it's interesting because the image of Aquarius is a woman with one foot in the water and one standing on the ground. Yeah. So it's that, both going on.
Yeah, it makes sense. So yeah, I think definitely we need to attempt to build a website using these crypto tech, and we need to integrate it with our, I'm just calling it the 3D internet now. So the word internet to me now is part of the old earth. The word like blockchain, internet is part of the new earth. So I actually don't know the difference between how those two look or interact or feel or work. So as I think that would be one of our first steps to look at and explore how to go about creating a website that works for both of these sides of the camp. And of course, as we transition fully over to the new system, then we will be one of the first charity idea websites in the crypto space. So hopefully we become a foundational precedent for others who want to follow in our footsteps, whether they're a community group or a charity, which is sort of a big part of why I want to put all of our meetings about as we go through this idea online. So there's actually a record for other organizations who want to follow the footsteps that we trailblaze here with this idea. So all right, so website we definitely need to look at and chew on. The language between, and I will look at the Carbonate website that we did for anyone. It's carbonate.org.au, because I love how it flows, but it's using all old language now. So, the word donut just feels so wrong in the new earth. Like that has to become a verb, like co-creator. The word, we're going to switch the word farmer. So Joe was completely right. It is the food producers and the artists that reinvigorate space. So the word farmer becomes artist, becomes hardest. And then we've got our impact partners, which would then become, in this term, socially minded businesses or investors, which needs another word altogether. So whatever that new word is needs to be implemented. So once we start, so I'd like to sort of chew on when I talked yesterday about setting up a token. So how does one go ahead and set up the platypus token and introduce it to the world? What are we talking there as far as, us actioning steps to make that happen?
I think at this stage, the way to go is to build it on Ethereum. Ethereum it really took off a couple of years ago with that possibility. So there's lots of tokens now that have been built on the Ethereum blockchain.
So just explain what Ethereum is. Just give us a little bit of a background on that.
So it's another blockchain. It's like Bitcoin. Bitcoin was created specifically to be a currency or to function as a currency or a store of value. Ethereum has been created with a different kind of functionality, and it has this capability which is called smart contracts, which means that you can do a whole lot of other things that you can't do with the Bitcoin blockchain, and that means you can build digital apps. You can create basically contracts that will do whatever you imagine to do. So there's been all these amazing projects built on top of Ethereum. And because Ethereum's been around long enough now, it's got that momentum about it, and it's stable and it's secure. So it's a very solid foundation if you're going to build something on top of it, basically.
Give me an example of one of the successful projects that have interacted with Ethereum.
Well, there's many. Like if you think about the DeFi space, which is decentralized finance, there's hundreds of different financial type of projects that have been built on top of Ethereum. And it's anything from allowing people to what you call staking, where you take some token and you park it somewhere and leave it there, and then you earn interest on it. And this new industry is kind of growing, and people are earning, you know, anywhere from 5 to 10% annual interest on their assets that they park or stake. There's also lending, so people can, for example, if I've got a whole lot of Bitcoin, I can put that up as collateral and I can get a loan for Ethereum or any other type of cryptocurrency, and then, you know, pay that back with very, very low and competitive interest rates. And it's all done through a smart contract. So there's no bank or middleman or bureaucracy. There's no paperwork. I don't have to have ID to get approval for a loan or a credit card or any of that. So I don't have to have a good credit rating or any of that kind of stuff. It's all just a thing between myself and wherever the amount that I'm borrowing is coming from. And it's coming from the decentralized network. So it's coming from, you know, a whole lot of places. But what it means is I can interact with that interface and I can put my collateral or my Bitcoin in place and I can set up a loan, and this all happens instantly. And it's very secure, and it's very efficient and seamless. So that's just sort of one example. There's all sorts of other things. There's stuff happening with how to decentralize video streaming. So when you're watching YouTube, everything's coming from a central server somewhere. And so if something happens to that server, it doesn't work. But if you have a decentralized streaming service, then it doesn't matter if bits change or fall off or get added onto the network. So getting back to Ethereum and I think this would be a good way to go, because it is accessible and it is fairly easy now to create a token like the Platypus token and do that on top of the Ethereum blockchain.
So is Ethereum a token or a coin?
Ethereum, well, it's a blockchain.
Okay, so it's neither.
The things that are made on top of Ethereum are using that blockchain. So if we make Platypus token, it won't be a blockchain as such, because it's connected to the Ethereum blockchain. So it will be a token. So you have coins and tokens. Bitcoin is a coin because it has its own blockchain.
Right.
Litecoin has its own blockchain, so it's a coin. DigiWave has its own blockchain, so it's a coin. But everything that's built on Ethereum is a token, because it's using that blockchain rather than reinventing a different blockchain.
So is that the distinguishing difference? Like if you to create a coin, a currency, you're actually innovating your own blockchain system. And where if you're innovating a token, you're actually utilizing a blockchain that already exists. Is that the single difference?
Yeah, I think so. And then you're becoming part of the Ethereum ecosystem, which is a growing, expanding ecosystem. And to go and make a new blockchain is a different kind of exercise, and it's more complex, and there's more cost involved, and there's more legal things involved. It gets quite complex. But if you're building a token on top of the Ethereum blockchain. Ethereum's already done all that stuff. It's already done the hard work as such. And so then we're leveraging that effort or that work. So that would be the way to go.
Okay, cool. So how do we start that process?
I've never done it before.
Me
And
neither.
and there are
no one fucking has, man.
No,
We're doing it.
but there are apps and there are websites where you can go and you can. It's almost like building a Wix website. You know, there's templates you can go through and put in the parameters that you want the platypus token to have. So I'm looking more into it and discovering that it's something that we can do. We can access the tools, so we can do that ourselves. And we've just got to work out the metrics for platypus token. How many will there be?
All right, so let's talk about that. Let's chew on the metric side of things. So as far as I've got my head around it, you set a number, that is the cutoff point. There will never be any more than that. Once you put that metric in, it is done and dusted. The idea has got its parameter. And then that allows a value to start to generate with that token. So let's explain in simple words about the parameters and how it works and why it's so important.
Yeah, I'm limited in that's not really my technical area. But essentially, if you, like what happens with Bitcoin, there's a limited supply, there's a limited amount of them, so that creates value. And I suppose what we're thinking about is the scale of the platypus token, as in how it will be used and at what scale will it be used. So do we need 100 of them or do we need 1,000 of them? If we have 1,000 of them and it really upscales and gets used a lot and there's thousands and thousands of people interacting with platypus token, then one platypus token is going to be very, very expensive. It's going to be worth a lot of money. But if we have 100,000 or 1 million of them, it's just that, you know, supply and demand thing, or that availability. So there's a lot more of them. So then they can be kept at a lower value, which might mean that they're more usable.
So basically, by limiting them, it makes it more valuable, but then there's less options for more and more people to get involved. And by making them to be more of them, they have a lot less value, but it could like give birth to a really dynamic community space. Is that kind of right?
Yeah, I think so. Like this is all, again, you know, this is kind of new territory. But we want, like, I'm imagining the platypus token as something that is very useful. Like it has a very useful function. It's not necessarily something to store value with. It's actually a very day-to-day usable currency. So that's how I'm imagining it. So it needs to be very interactive. It needs to be very easy to use for all types of transactions, from very, very small amounts, you know, to maybe very, very large amounts. You know, one Bitcoin's worth nearly $50,000 US.
Yeah.
You can break that down. I think it has 8 decimal points.
Yeah.
So you can have a very, you know, the smallest portion of a Bitcoin is a very small amount of money at the moment. But there are other blockchains that have a very, very big supply, like in the hundreds of millions. And because of that, they're worth, like one of them's worth 5 cents or 4 cents. So that's probably, that end of the scale is probably more useful for us.
What's
So
Ethereum?
do you decide what increments, like how many increments a token can have too?
Yeah, that's all part of its design. So
you know, like a person can have one, but there's many increments that
you can
use
do
just a section of that token,
yeah,
not the whole token.
Yep. Yeah, you can do it, definitely. That's part of its design.
So what's Ethereum worth?
I think it's getting close to $2,000.
And how many are on the market?
I'd have to check that one.
Check that one out, just to get like a parameter. And Joe, don't you reckon we should just choose the numbers using like sacred geometry, like using actually sacred maths, and like coming up with the aligned like figures for how many tokens we want to release into the world?
Yeah, absolutely. Like you could look at the different numbers, like each number has its own energy. You know, look at whatever number would suit something that is, you know, a part of a change or for the greater good.
Sacred
You know,
regeneration. Yep.
Yeah, which might be a 3 or a, I'm not sure, I'd have to look further into it, you know, or it could be like an increment of 1, you know, 1 being the start of a new cycle, a new beginning of something. So yeah, we'll look into it. I mean, it could be 11, 11, 11, 11, or yeah, a combination of those numbers. But yeah, probably to find the number that resonates best with the project, or you know, the vision we've got for the project.
Well, I definitely want to do it that way. I want us to tune in, basically use the whole Fibonacci, sacred geometry, and actually work out.
Four's a really good number for a solid foundation. You know, obviously a square, but yeah, we'll look into it.
Yep, excellent. So yeah, so if we can sort of like, I guess the best way is to find a model of a token that is sort of like maybe similar or gearing up into the same sort of like flow as us, and seeing where they have set their parameters, or inviting into our next meeting someone who has like some form of expertise in understanding the parameters and how best to set up a token looking far into its future. I'd be very interested. I mean, I know there's not many like experts out there on any of these topics really, and we are basically going to be really having to make a lot of this stuff up as we go.
Yeah, I was just looking at some other examples. So there's DigiWave, which trades at the moment at around 7 cents US. It's kind of like Bitcoin. It's a currency kind of orientated blockchain, but it's a bit different, and it has a total supply. There's a total supply which is 21 billion coins. And at the moment, the available supply is 14 billion. There's another coin called Redcoin, which is very kind of like a similar thing, and it has 30 billion available supply.
And how much is that worth?
And Redcoin at the moment is worth 0.5 cent.
0.5 cent.
And these are like Redcoin was sort of part of its design was to be used as a tipping coin. So when you're on the internet and you read an article and you like the article and you want to tip the author, you can send them some Redcoin. Almost sort of like basic attention token, which is another one called BAT, which is used with the Brave browser. And DigiByte is similar in that it was kind of designed in a way to be an everyday useful currency. So if you're buying something for a very small amount of money, you could, you know, easily practically use DigiByte because it's got a smaller, you know, so Bitcoin, because it's worth so much more per coin, and the way that it's designed, it's not as quick and it's not as speedy, but it's set up to be not so much an everyday currency, but as a store of value. So somewhere where you would put your money, or not your money, but your value, and know that it's going to be safe and not lose value. So I'm thinking, when we think about the platypus token, I'm thinking about these other projects like DigiByte and Redcoin. So I'll look into those and find out more about them.
Yeah, because we've got to work out, I guess we have to sit down and work out how we want this token to be used. That becomes we've got to be very clear about the purpose and intention of this token, looking sort of far into its future. So what is it that the platypus token is there to generate? And so we've got to set it up to serve that purpose. So and that's probably a whole other discussion, or at least to chew on. So just to sort of tip the top of that conversation,
Yeah, well, any heart projects, which is art, garden, you know, like anything that, anything with heart, I suppose. Yeah.
So it's kind of like, if we look at sort of our 3D currency, it's kind of like the $2 coin, you know, like it's never going to be worth more than $2. It's relatively, we chuck it all into our wallets relatively without thinking, you know, it's a small coin, but it's extremely useful. Like we're interacting with that coin all the time because it's just such a sort of low decimal, and, you know, so the $2 coin itself is small value, but very useful. And I guess, so we're going to look at, we want to bring in 100,000 artists. They're like classically will have no crypto wallet. They'll be starting from very tiny increments. Their abilities to bring in their own capital to purchase tokens or coins will be really extremely limited and disenfranchised to begin with. So we're going to be looking at people who need those much smaller amounts. The value of art, I guess, because it's such a new movement within the digital world, will start low. Like, so to buy and sell and interact with our digital shop, you're going to be wanting smaller prices, so it becomes available to our audience. But it needs, and obviously we want to have a very big community using the platypus coins. We're looking at the community spaces in the 3D world. Classically, again, they have no money, you know, like, so so I don't know if that is starting to work out the parameters or if I'm totally on the wrong track here. But so to me, it's like community engagement. So it has to be really affordable and it has to be really accessible, and it still needs to have some like tangible high potential to become valuable. As art becomes valuable, as sacred regeneration becomes valuable, as we like have, as the Renaissance becomes valuable. So it does need to hold a bit of like intentional, a bit of its weight in gold. So with all that in mind, what are your thoughts?
I'm
thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. Can you hear us?
Can you hear my thoughts?
I mean,
yeah, I agree. And it's, you know, we're in that kind of discovery phase too. Like we're discovering what platypus token is. But I think of all those things. It needs to have those things. Like it needs to be useful. It needs to be flexible, like a $2 coin. But it needs to have value as well. And I'm just sort of imagining how it will be adopted over time, and how something, you know, how does something become adoptable? What makes it popular or usable? Or, you know, there's another coin called Dogecoin, which was created not long ago it was created from Litecoin, but it was kind of done as a joke. And it's got, its icon is a cute dog. And it's very efficient and fast and everything, but it was created and then it was sort of made public and then everyone went away. So there's no team working on it. There's no marketing, there's no developers. But people really like it and it's popular. And then, you know, Elon Musk started talking about it and joking about it, and everyone was, you know, became a thing you could make jokes about and make funny memes, cute doggy memes about. And now it recently really jumped in value, but it's for new people coming into the space. It's one of the first things they come across, and it holds their attention, and it's become really popular. So I'm thinking about, if we're creating platypus token, we're also going to think about what are the factors that make something popular and memorable or hold people's attention, so that it does become adopted and it does become useful, and, you know, more and more people use it. So yeah, that's part of our thinking process.
Well,
as we
definitely, I
define it.
definitely think we need to bring, obviously, this whole thing with us is sacred regeneration. That these tokens and coins are seeds for the new earth. Literally, they're literally planting seeds. Like the action of owning the platypus coin is that ultimately, you know, that whole movement is about sacred regeneration. That somewhere along the line, that token is actually impacting 3D regeneration of the planet, our food chain and our waterways and our animals and our biodiversity.
Well, it's like that. There's a server, isn't there, that you can use, or like a
that plants trees.
That's right, exactly. So every time someone uses that platform to search something or whatever, then something goes towards that to plant a tree.
Yeah.
So there's different things like that you could, bring all that sort of stuff. I don't know how it works tech-wise, but so when people are actually using it, they know it's going towards something that's regenerative, whether it's art or a farmer or seed collection or the bees or whatever, some project built within it. That it's
that's great, because that's part of its adoptability.
Yeah.
That's an incentive to use that coin or token as opposed to something else.
Yeah.
Because somebody wants to participate and be a part of regeneration.
Yeah, I mean,
so that's great.
So I think linking this token and coin to all of our actual work with regeneration and communities and elders and everything that we're doing in the 3D world will give it that weight of social impact, that weight of engaging a coin that's absolutely been set up to regenerate the earth. So, and doing that via the artist community. So I think that's a big part of what we're defining here. And and also we've got the link to like the seeds. We've got the link to the future. So we really want to position it as a coin of renaissance, that regenerative coin, that coin of the renaissance, that coin of the visionaries, that coin of the people engaging in the visions of the new earth. Like that's a massive aspect of what this is. And then we can also look at what the platypus represents. So in choosing this as our token artwork, as our mascot, as our logo, the platypus itself will give us a lot of answers. So, just from the top of my head, that platypus is, it's this amazing creature that amalgamates pretty much all the other creatures in one being. Like it's got the duck beak, it's got the spike in its tail of the diggers, it's got the kangaroo fur, it's a water creature and a land creature, and it lays eggs.
Yeah,
it lays eggs.
Crazy critter.
So the platypus, what does the platypus tell us? The platypus tells us that this is a unification of several different species, a unification of several different animals.
Well, and the platypus is also indicative of the environment. If the environment is pristine, that's where you'll find the platypus. They're not going to be in water that's toxic or muddied, or they're an indication of a pristine environment, which is an incredible vision in itself to picture that, into the future of pristine waterways, pristine forests, so we can have these creatures. Well, and us complex creatures still living here too, sustainably.
I love that. So I definitely write that down, Richard. Like our coin has to indicate a pristine environment. So everything about it has to be pristine. The intention, the community, the projects we work on, all leads to a pristine environment. Accountability.
The ethics behind it. Yep. The integrity. Yep.
Yep. Impeccability. The impeccable coin, the one that has pure impeccability and honor and intention for a pristine world. So that in itself is a good chunky dialogue to sort of establish what the platypus token is and how I believe it's going to be a leader in its field, because it's really taking this heartiness into this crypto space that maybe hasn't been presented with these sorts of words and hasn't attracted that activistic, caring, loving, community-minded individual who really does care about those things. And one of the big pushes with Carbonate and NRAD is that we educate our audiences that at the end of the day, the biggest action you can take as a consumer is, where does your money go? Like, what are you choosing to buy? Because that determines the marketplace for the producer. So with that same logic, our token has to have, you know, like, what token are you choosing to support? Because that token has a responsibility out past just this sort of like, you know, pretty interactive space. Like, we as a collective have a responsibility right now to clean up the 3D world and to imagine the new Earth in a pristine condition. So I think our token has to have a very clear social intention behind it. And I think we'll be one of the first to do that, actually. Would you agree?
Yeah, definitely.
Mm.
Yeah, I think it's I've got so many things racing around in my head at the moment. I can't focus on
That's all right.
one thing to speak to be able to speak. But
No worries.
it will be in that sense. It will be showing the way, showing the path for many other things to follow down that path.
Mm.
And I think obviously we do all that. We can achieve all that through the way that we brand, if you use that word, the platypus token.
Yeah.
So that becomes clear and easily known that that's what this token is about and what it stands for, and that will kind of have that intention of then how it's used, you know. So yeah, it's very exciting.
Okay, so let's bring this meeting to a close, because I don't want us to like get too overwhelmed with every conversation we have. So just from the perspective of like moving this forward, each time we have a meeting, moving it forward a little bit. So we need to research about the websites and where we position ourselves. So when I start to get a team together to build this website, how we're doing that, what are the advantages and disadvantages of that space? Do we need both? Like, I want to get a clear synopsis on the choices we make with the website, because that would be step one with the website. The second part would be to maybe find someone or a group that we could actually have a meeting with and do this with them, talking and exploring how you establish your parameters, like what advantages and disadvantages there are, just like basically understanding it more. I mean, I definitely want to understand it more, and I definitely want us to bring in the sacred geometry and the astrology and the intuition and psychic element to making that decision. So that's something, Joe, for you to chew on there. Like, how do we, those parameters, how do we bring in that empathic understanding of it, and the scientific understanding of it, and the future understanding of it, which means we have to sit down and embellish and chew on the parameters of what the whole purpose of this token is. So that's like 2 tasks to come out of today. And for me, I will start to really chew on how we're going to word the intention of the token, which will give us our focal point for what ultimately the social impact and the social cause that we're championing here with the platypus token. So I think those 3 tasks, if we've got 1 each there, will help us move this conversation forward, so that with each meeting we can come with that sort of update and start to like action it. So I don't know if there's someone we can connect with, Richard, you might know, who has had some broader understanding of setting up the parameters, the value, those numbers. If we can find someone to talk to on that topic, that would be awesome.
Yeah, so it's not something I've done before in terms of creating a token. So I'll research the stuff about websites and how to structure the website, and I'll look into those token parameters and what's involved in creating a token, and I'll look into finding someone that who's done that before, perhaps, and has experience making a token that we can have yeah, we can talk to and have a conversation with.
Yeah, excellent.
So I'll pursue those things.
And if you could come up with some, and don't worry if they're like super famous now in the crypto world, like we want to speak to some founders who have already gone through this process with a token and done what we want to do. And I will come up with a document or a conversation that makes getting in contact with them really easy. Basically, like expressing what this idea is all about and summarizing it and inspiring them to say, like, yes, make contact with us and we can have that dialogue. So that makes a big difference when you can express the big overview picture of all of this, because it's a really exciting and very powerful idea. And I think they will be willing to communicate with us, and you know, that'll be really helpful for us coming into this. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I'll do that for sure. Yep.
Well,
Yeah, that sounds good.
Exciting. So what I'm going to do with this meeting is that these are going to go online every time we have these meetings, because I want that public record, but I'm going to kind of basically go through it again and write down the minutes just in a minute, so that anyone who wants to watch this will get a rough overview of what we've dialogued out today in the kind of rough order. And that way we can sort of, you know, allow people to follow us. So thanks guys. That was an awesome,
Sounds good.
very first meeting of the art department. Like, I'm pumped. I'm feeling this is like a radical move that we're making right now. How do you guys feel?
Yeah, exactly. I feel
Very
the same way.
excited.
It's very exciting, and it's exciting to be venturing into new territory, into the unknown. And I feel confident because we have what we need to be able to do that. So it's very exciting.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely feeling like we're going to be learning hell of a lot together. Like, we're going to be actually learning so much through this journey that by the end of it, when we've achieved our goal, like, the three of us are going to just have such profound ability to communicate and understand so much more past where I know where I'm at right now, like way past that. And like, that's just going to be like a fantastic additional, you know, end result of all this. So I'm excited to become an expert in this field, like really from the grassroots up, as we crawl through this experience and experiment, and like end up at the other end, we're going to have amazing journey to share with others. So I'm very excited.
Yeah, we have no idea where we will be in a very short space of time. That's all I can say.
Just making known the unknown, team. Just making known the unknown.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, guys. Well, I'm just going to like stop recording now, but just stay on the line for a second. So meeting number 1 completed. Thank you, everyone. And enjoy this. Pass this on to anyone who is relevant or resonates with the project. Other than that, we're just going to like flood this quietly grassroots.